What if the country with the most oil on Earth still couldn't afford to be rich? This is the paradox of Venezuela. Venezuela sits on more than 303 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. That is the largest known stash of oil on the planet, more than any other nation in history. It holds more oil than Saudi Arabia, more than Iran, and more than Canada. In fact, its reserves are over 5 times larger than those of the United States. But this treasure is not an easy jackpot. Most of Venezuela's oil lies deep beneath the Orinoco Belt, a massive region in the east of the country. The crude there is extra heavy, thick, dense, and difficult to pump. It needs advanced techniques, steam injection, and blending with lighter oil just to be usable. Because it is heavy and high in sulfur, this oil usually sells at a discount on global markets. Even with giant reserves, each barrel brings in less profit than lighter, sweeter crude. Production is dominated by PDVSA, the state-owned oil company. For decades, it controlled Venezuela's oil wealth and carried the weight of the entire economy. Over time, aging infrastructure, corruption, and chronic underinvestment tore the system apart. Pipelines rusted, refineries broke, and skilled engineers left the country. Yet on the streets, gasoline felt almost free. Venezuela became famous for having some of the cheapest fuel in the world. Massive government subsidies kept pump prices near zero, but every liter sold that cheaply silently drained money from the state's finances. Despite giant reserves, export income has collapsed. In 2023, crude oil exports brought in just about $4 billion, a fraction of its potential. In the same year, Saudi Arabia earned around $180 billion from crude exports. The United States and Russia each made over $120 billion, leaving Venezuela far behind. The turning point came with Hugo Chavez in 1998. He reshaped the oil sector, turned PDVSA into a political tool, and tightened state control over the industry. Oil was no longer just an economic resource. It became an instrument of power. Domestic goals, social programs, and political loyalty began to trump efficiency and long-term investment. Under Nicolas Maduro, the crisis worsened. Hyperinflation, shortages, and collapsing production pushed millions into poverty, even as the oil stayed underground. Then came U.S. sanctions. Starting in 2017 and tightening in 2019, they cut Venezuela off from key markets and financial channels. With exports to the United States almost gone, Venezuela turned east. China became its main buyer, alongside countries like India and Cuba. In late 2022, Chevron was allowed to resume limited operations, but the license came with tight rules. Production could restart, yet the cash flow to Caracas stayed restricted. Even as some oil moved again, most of the revenue was locked by sanctions. The government struggled to convert shipments into usable funds. When Donald Trump returned to the presidency in 2025, pressure increased once more. A new strategy aimed not just at Venezuela, but at anyone doing business with its oil. A 25% tariff hit all goods entering the U.S. from countries that bought Venezuelan oil. It was designed to scare off buyers and economically isolate the Maduro government. The result was mixed. India's reliance industries pulled back, but China continued importing Venezuelan crude despite the pressure. By September 2025, exports climbed to around 900,000 barrels per day, a 9-month high. But even this recovery remained far below the levels Venezuela once enjoyed. Venezuela proves a brutal truth. Natural resources alone do not create wealth. Without stable institutions, good management, and sound policies, even the biggest oil reserves can become a curse. This is not just Venezuela's story. It is a lesson about money, power, and control, and how a country with the most oil in the world can still struggle to turn black gold into real prosperity.